Ever wondered how the reign of the Somali pirates came to an end? To understand the fall, we need to first look at the rise. Nestled in the Horn of Africa, Somalia boasts a strategic position along the Gulf of Aden and the vast Indian Ocean. This location, a blessing for some, turned into a curse for many Somalis in the aftermath of the collapse of the central government in 1991. For centuries, Somalia enjoyed a rich history of trade, culture, and governance. However, the fall of the Siad Barre regime in the early 90s turned the nation's fortunes upside down. The central authority disintegrated, and the country was thrust into a power vacuum. This led to years of lawlessness, conflict, and humanitarian crisis. In such desperate times, survival becomes the primary concern. For many Somalis, the sea was their only resource. The strategic location that once fueled trade now became a breeding ground for illicit activities. Fishing communities, impoverished by years of civil war and famine, took to the seas with a different purpose. What started as a fight against foreign vessels illegally fishing in their waters soon spiraled into something much darker: the rise of piracy off the Somali coast. These pirates, armed with speedboats, automatic weapons, and rocket-propelled grenades, began attacking commercial vessels, hijacking ships, and holding crews for ransom. The once busy shipping routes of the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean became feared waters, haunted by the specter of Somali pirates. The world watched in horror as the frequency and audacity of these attacks escalated. But behind the headlines, a complex narrative was unfolding. These pirates weren't born out of a love for adventure or greed. They were the product of a country in ruins, a society grappling with devastation, and a desperate bid for survival. So, as the central government crumbled, the seas off the Somali coast became a hotbed for piracy. But this was just the beginning of a saga that would shake the foundations of international maritime security. With no central authority to maintain order, piracy thrived. This was especially true in Somalia between 2005 and 2012, a period often referred to as the Golden Age of piracy. This was a time when pirates appeared to rule the waves off the Horn of Africa, and their audacity seemed to know no bounds. In this period, there were several notorious incidents that etched the Somali pirates into global consciousness. One such incident was the hijacking of the MV Fina, a Ukrainian ship laden with tanks and military hardware. The pirates held the ship and crew hostage, demanding a staggering ransom for their release. Another incident that grabbed headlines was the seizure of the supertanker Sirius Star, carrying 2 million barrels of oil. The pirates, in their small skiffs, managed to overpower this massive vessel, a feat that left the world stunned. So, how did these pirates operate? Their methods were as audacious as they were effective. They patrolled the waters off the Somali coast in small, fast boats armed to the teeth. Their targets were not limited to small, vulnerable vessels. They went after large cargo ships, tankers, and even luxury yachts. These pirates were not just opportunistic bandits. They were organized and strategic, often operating out of motherships that allowed them to strike far from the Somali coast. They used GPS and satellite phones to coordinate their attacks and negotiate ransoms. Some of the pirates were former fishermen, familiar with the sea and the shipping routes. Their targets were chosen with care. They preferred ships with low freeboards and slow speeds, making them easier to board. Once a ship was taken, the pirates would demand a ransom, often paid in cash, and parachuted onto the deck of the hijacked ship. What made this era even more remarkable was the sheer scale of the piracy. At the height of the Golden Age, it was estimated that Somali pirates were holding more than 50 ships and over 1,000 hostages. The audacity of the Somali pirates knew no bounds, and the world watched in disbelief. The world could no longer ignore the escalating piracy crisis. Like a wave crashing on the shore, the threat of Somali piracy rippled far beyond the borders of the African nation, reaching the ears of world leaders and international organizations. The United Nations, the embodiment of global cooperation, was one of the first to respond. Through a series of resolutions, the UN gave the green light for international naval forces to enter Somali waters and combat piracy. But it wasn't just about fighting fire with fire. The UN also sought to tackle the root causes of piracy, focusing on social and economic development in Somalia. Meanwhile, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, was also stepping up. Building on the UN's resolutions, NATO formed international coalitions, pooling resources and expertise to deploy naval forces in the region. These coalitions represented a collective response to a shared threat, a testament to the power of global unity in the face of adversity. On the high seas, the response was equally robust. Safe corridors were created for shipping, a move akin to building highways in the ocean, designed to guide vessels safely through piracy-infested waters. But even these corridors weren't enough. Many ships started employing private security, armed guards ready to protect crew and cargo from pirate attacks. Yet, the fight against piracy wasn't all plain sailing. The international community also grappled with legal challenges. Questions arose about the prosecution and imprisonment of pirates and the rights they were entitled to. These issues underscored the complex nature of the piracy crisis, a problem that extended far beyond the simple act of robbery at sea. As the world banded together, the fight against Somali piracy became a testament to international cooperation. Countries, organizations, and individuals united by a common threat were working together to reclaim the high seas. The stage was set for a showdown between the international community and the Somali pirates. The tide began to turn against the pirates. As we moved into 2012, the once formidable presence of Somali piracy began to wane. A combination of factors contributed to this decline, with successful anti-piracy operations playing a significant role. International military forces, including the European Union Naval Force Somalia, began to patrol the waters known to be frequented by pirates. These patrols were backed by aggressive anti-piracy operations that saw the capture of several pirate vessels, reducing the pirates' capabilities and dampening their morale. But it wasn't just the military that was cracking down on piracy. Legal actions were also being taken. Pirates captured in these operations were not just released or sent back to Somalia, they were prosecuted. Courts around the world, from the United States to Kenya and the Seychelles, started to convict and imprison pirates, making clear the legal consequences of their actions. Another significant factor in the downfall of Somali piracy was the increasing effectiveness of private security. Many shipping companies began to hire private armed guards to protect their vessels. These guards, often former military personnel, provided a formidable defense against pirate attacks. Their presence served as a powerful deterrent, further reducing the number of successful pirate hijackings. But perhaps the most crucial element in the downfall of Somali piracy was the role of local Somali authorities and communities. Recognizing the damage piracy was doing to their reputation and their economy, these groups began to take action. Local authorities increased their efforts to combat piracy, while community leaders worked to provide alternatives to piracy for young men, such as fishing and trade. As these efforts combined, the number of pirate attacks began to drop dramatically. By the end of 2012, pirate attacks had fallen to their lowest level in 7 years. The reign of the Somali pirates was coming to an end. The Somali piracy crisis left a lasting impact. As we journey through the aftermath, we find a landscape scarred yet healing, a people rebuilding, and a world forever changed. Piracy off the Somali coast is at an all-time low, but the specter of the past still lingers. While the golden age of Somali piracy has long since faded into history, it's essential to recognize that it hasn't been completely eradicated. Occasional incidents remind us that the problem, while diminished, is not entirely extinct. The underlying issues that gave rise to piracy in the first place, political instability, economic hardship, and a lack of maritime security, still persist. Somalia continues to grapple with political instability. Despite ongoing efforts, building a robust political system remains a challenge. The country is still finding its footing, attempting to maintain a delicate balance between the different factions, clans, and regions. Economic hardship too hasn't disappeared overnight. Many Somalis still struggle with poverty and unemployment. The lure of piracy, once a quick route to riches, might still tempt those desperate enough. Maritime security remains an ongoing concern. Somalia's vast coastline, the longest in mainland Africa, is a daunting task to monitor and control. The need for a robust maritime security framework, involving both national and international stakeholders, is more pressing than ever. The Somali piracy crisis taught us many lessons. It showed us the devastating effects of lawlessness, the dire consequences of economic disparity, and the importance of international cooperation in tackling global threats. It underscored the significance of maritime security, not just for Somalia but for the world at large. But perhaps the most crucial lesson is the need for continued vigilance. Complacency can be as dangerous as the pirates themselves. The world must keep its eyes on the horizon, ready to respond to any resurgence. In the end, the reign of the Somali pirates ended not with a bang, but with a whimper. Their story serves as a stark reminder of the intricate ties between security, stability, and prosperity.